Today we're going to play 10 games that I love to play during large gatherings, whether it's the holidays, large family gatherings, parties, classrooms, or an icebreaker to make new friends. These are great games to play with 4 or more people. This is by no means an extensive list, and so many other great games could have made this list too. Here are just 10 that I've recently played and enjoyed. Let me know your favorites in the comments below. I've made a how-to video for each of these games. Just follow the links that'll appear up here if you see one you like. And if there's no link yet, don't worry, I'll get around to it, I promise. So I've broken these out into the following categories: games of deception, games of chaos, brainy cooperative games, and a comfort game. Games of deception are best suited for your biggest groups. Their rules should be simple enough to teach everyone quickly, and they should rely more on socialization and investigation rather than introspective strategy. The first 2 games are virtual reskins of the same concept, and both are perfect for gatherings larger than 7 people. So gather your family or friends and let's go. Number 1, Werewolf. In a previous episode, I covered another version of this game called One Night. That version can be played with as few as 4 people, but it needs an app to function with. In this version of Werewolf, someone in your group is assigned as a moderator instead. Object: if you are a werewolf, you and the other werewolves win if there are as many werewolves as villagers. If you're on the villagers team, you win if both werewolves are killed. Each player looks at their secret card, and the character it shows will be their assigned role until the game has ended. Each round has 2 stages, a night stage and a day stage. The night stage is first, and all players must close their eyes. The moderator wakes them up by their role. When the werewolves wake up, they can eliminate one of the villager players. The moderator takes note of who was eliminated. Certain other villager roles may be awakened to perform different tasks. The moderator then tells all players to open their eyes and begin the daytime stage. It's likely that one of the players will have been eliminated by the wolves, and that person is told that they are out of the game and cannot speak until the game is over. The remaining players now discuss who they think were the werewolves. If they form a consensus, they can vote to eliminate who they suspect to be a werewolf. The werewolves will have to deceive the others that they were villagers, otherwise they will be voted out. Nights and days continue like this until either both werewolves were eliminated, giving the villagers a team victory, or if there are equal numbers of werewolves and villagers, giving the wolf team a victory. Just like Mafia, Werewolf can be played without buying a special deck. You can simply put the roles on a piece of paper and have the players pick them out of a hat. Werewolf is an excellent game for big groups. The unknown whodunit element plus the bluffing make it really fun to play with a group of people, whether you know them or not. You're going to learn a lot about strangers, and you'll probably learn something about your friends and family. And if you want to know more about Werewolf, check out my video on how to play Werewolf. If you have played Werewolf, I'm sure you have your own rules. There's lots of ways to play this. Please drop those in the comments. Game number 2, Mafia. As a Sicilian American, I'm not allowed to tell you about the Mafia, but I can tell you about Mafia the game, and here it is. This is my number 2 choice, and this version of Mafia has a lot more going on than Werewolf. However, the object is more or less the same. This is one of the best games if you have 10 or more people, in my opinion. You can play with as few as 7, but having players in the double digits makes it much more interesting. For this reason, Mafia is a super popular game for school classrooms. Feel free to adjust the descriptions for the age groups you're playing with. You know, young minds can be very impressionable. One player will act as a neutral moderator, also known as the judge. The rest of the setup is determined by how many players you have. Games consist of rounds, and each round has 2 phases, a night phase and a day phase. The judge tells the group to go to sleep, and every player except for the judge must close their eyes. The moderator wakes them up by their role. The Mafia members can make an elimination during their turn. If playing with special civilian roles, the judge will wake them to do their specific duties. After all roles have been played, the judge will wake everyone and the daytime stage begins. If a player was eliminated, they're out of the game and cannot participate until the game is fully over. The remaining civilian players try to work out who among them is a Mafia member. The Mafia members bluff to avoid detection. If there's a consensus, the players can vote to lynch another player they claim to be a Mafia member. If the lynching gets a majority vote, then that player is eliminated, whether or not they were guilty. After the day phase, the game cycles back to the night phase, and the game continues until either all the Mafia have been eliminated, or if the Mafia have eliminated enough civilians so they have equal numbers of Mafia and civilians. Sound familiar? And if you want to learn the rules to Mafia, check out Playing Games, How to Play Mafia video, right there. The artwork in this game is fantastic. It's sort of a Grand Theft Auto style poster art. You get all these cards, and so you have a judge who is our moderator, but you also have the Mafia. They'll have a little red Mafia box here, and you'll have civilians. They'll have a blue box here. The backs are all uniform, so you don't know who's who. If you're the moderator, you get a little crime scene pad here so you can keep track of what's what and who's who, especially useful if you're playing with as many as 24 people. You're going to need that. This game does have a darker appeal. That said, there's a tamer game of bluffing and deception that I'm about to tell you about, and that's our number 3 game. Number 3, Saboteur. Saboteur is a favorite holiday game of ours, and it's perfect for big groups to play around the table. Like Werewolf and Mafia, it's a bluffing game. But rather than a bad guy eliminating the other players, Saboteur dwarf players win by sabotaging the gold-seeking, tunnel-building miner dwarves. Don't worry, it's not that complicated. The first time you set it up, though, it does seem a bit complicated, but after just one game, it becomes very simple and enjoyable to play over and over again. This is due to the many different ways to think of your strategy, based on the people you're both playing with and against. If you are a miner, your object is to reach the gold nugget card at the top of the mine by tunneling connected cave paths. If you're a saboteur, your object is to prevent the miners from reaching the gold nugget card. You do this by fooling the other players and blocking their cave paths. Before the game ends, there is a tremendous amount of fun to be had trying to figure out who's who. Many players will make outrageous accusations, and sometimes they have to eat humble pie at the end of the game, which is very satisfying to witness. In many ways, I find Saboteur to be more enjoyable than Werewolf or Mafia because no one's eliminated, which means you don't have to sit out part of the game. You get to play the whole game. You also get a chance to play either side over the 3 rounds, giving you the ability to use both your skills of deduction and deception. And if you want to give it a try, check out my full how-to video for Saboteur. There's one more bluffing game, and this one's a sort of fresh look on an old game. Stress Who. Stress Who is a variation of the ever-popular and contentious game Guess Who. Stress Who is just the name we use, and you can find loads of similar videos if you search Assumption Guess Who or Subjective Guess Who. Stress Who is a hilarious party game spin on the classic Guess Who rules. The major difference with Stress Who is that rather than asking yes or no questions about your opponent's character card's appearance, you instead ask wildly subjective questions about their habits, indiscretions, and anything else that might stress them out if they knew we were talking about them behind their backs. The object of Stress Who is to have absurd fun with your friends. That's all. Let me emphasize that although you can play this game with just 2 people, it's much more fun to have teams of 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, or even 4 versus 4. You'll have so much more fun arguing over how to answer the crazy questions lobbed at you. Unlike classic Guess Who rules, your Stress Who questions shouldn't be directed at gender or physical appearance as shown on their cards. You should ask open-ended questions like, what does your person Google when no one's looking? Or, is your character on a governmental watch list? Does your character think a hot dog is a sandwich? Does your character own more than a dozen pairs of yoga pants? The questions you ask are limited to only your imagination and really the sensibilities of the other players. If you're playing with a very conservative group, don't be offensive. And if you're playing with a very offensive group, don't be a prude. It's a great game, and if you want to learn more about it, check out my full video on Stress Who. This video is sponsored by me, specifically my Krampus project. If you enjoy my perspective on games and their history, you may also enjoy my perspective on Christmas carols, specifically Krampus Carols. Do me a big favor and check out my concept album of 8 unique seasonal songs. I hope you'll laugh along with their satirical message during a holiday that's filled with strange ancient traditions just trying to fit in with an ever-changing world. And Krampus. That wraps up our whodunits, and now let's get on to some of the more chaotic group games. Let's start with this one, Unstable Unicorns. It can be played with 2 to 4 players, but in my opinion, 4 to 8 makes it really fun. The object is to be the first player with 7 unicorns, or 6 unicorns if you're playing with 6 to 8 players. You do this by carefully obtaining unicorns, protecting your stable, and destroying or stealing your opponent's unicorns. That means sabotaging other players, stealing their unicorns, but that's just the fun of Unstable Unicorns. It's the chaos and the fact that the game can turn on its head in just 1 round. We love playing Unstable Unicorns, and I hope you will too. It's a fun game with great artwork, but don't be deceived by its colorful appearance. These unicorns are bloodthirsty, and your opponents might be too. Did that seem complicated? Well, it kind of is. But I do encourage you to play this game, so check out the full rules to Unstable Unicorns right here. Just follow the link. Flux, the card game that goes from easy to insane in less than 1 round. With a lot of chaotic party games, the setup can be complicated. A lot of pieces, a lot of rules up front. This is the opposite. This game begins with a very simple set of rules, but the chaos comes from you, the player. As gameplay unfolds, players will play cards with new rules, adding more and more complexity with each round. Flux can be played with as few as 2 people, but it's best to gather more and play with 4 to 5, or go crazy and let more people in. Flux even allows more players to be dealt in mid-game. If a goal card is played, well, that's the goal for winning the game. Whoever can reach that goal first wins, unless of course another goal card is placed on top of that, and that will become the new goal card, eliminating the previous one. Flux has been a game that we've played over the holidays, and it's pretty fun. It's very chaotic, and you can just have a strategy that you've built up for round after round, and then some crazy action card or new goal comes up, and all of a sudden everything you built is crumbling into ashes. It's devastating. Don't get too hung up on winning and losing because it's so unpredictable. It's a lot of luck. And Flux is just meant to be a fun, crazy game for a big group of people. I hope you enjoy it too. And to cut through the chaos, follow the link for my full explainer on the game Flux. Let's continue on with games of chaos. Killer Bunnies, one of the most insane and chaotic card games I've ever played. The object of Killer Bunnies is simple. Collect as many carrots as possible, giving you the best chance to win the carrot lottery at the end of the game. Okay, maybe it's not that simple. You earn carrot cards by spending bunny money or playing special cards, but you cannot win unless you have at least one living bunny in play. Therefore, your opponents will do everything in their power to kill your bunnies, thus preventing you from winning. Bunnies are killed by special run cards or self-sabotage by picking up one of these gray cards. You and your opponents race through the deck trying to eliminate bunnies and earn as many carrot cards as you can for the end of game carrot lottery. This quirky indie game is full of all kinds of strange and confusing cards. You can choose to team up against players, you can form alliances, but at the end of the day, it's whoever has the magic carrot at the end who wins Killer Bunnies. This game is a bit of an investment in time and money, but it's ultimately worth it if you have a group of people who enjoy playing it. Definitely take the time to learn it. Don't buy a bunch of expansions right away because it's just going to make it more confusing. Start off slow, and then once you get the hang of it, you can add in some of those expansion decks. And that's Killer Bunnies, a great game for big groups. Give it a shot. Killer Bunnies is a very complicated game, so let me show you how to play step by step. Follow this link to learn how. Okay, I think we've covered some really great chaotic games for big groups. Let's talk about some brainy ones. Game number 8, Set. Set is a simple game to test your ability to identify patterns. If played solo, it's a great version of solitaire to keep your brain sharp. If played with others, it's a stressful race to see who has the fastest command of their left and right brain. This makes it an ideal party game, and players can come and go. The object of the game is to identify a set of 3 cards from 12 cards placed face up on the table. If a player can put together a set of 3, they say set, and take that set, putting it into their collection pile. At the end of the game, whoever has the most sets wins. A set is a group of 3 cards in which each of the cards' features are either the same on each card or are different on each card. Set is both stressful and satisfying. It's a fun game to have laid out during gatherings and let people come in and out of games. You can even play Set cooperatively and work together to find as many sets as possible. For such a simple concept, Set is an incredibly sophisticated game, and I hope you give it a try. Check out this video for the complete guide to Set. Game number 9, The Game. This game can be played alone in a solitary fashion, but it's best played with a large group of people. The object is to eliminate all 98 cards in the deck. And why 98 cards? Well, you're going to want to fill in the numbers 1 through 100, starting with the number 2 and ending with the number 99. The game has 2 pairs of starter cards, a pair of 1s and a pair of 100s. So you have your 1s up here and you have your 100s down there. On the top rows, you can only place cards which are higher in value than the shown card. On the bottom 2 rows, you can only place cards which are lower in value than the shown card. On each player's turn, they must play at least 2 cards from their hand per turn. They could play more if they'd like. The communal goal is to play through the whole deck before the game ends. The game either ends by all 98 cards being played to the table, or if a player can no longer play 2 cards on their turn, ending the game for all players. If a player gets stuck, then all players count up the cards in their hands, plus the remaining cards in the deck, if any. The total of all of these cards is your score. The lower the score, the better, 0 being the best possible score. It's a fairly simple game to get started, but completing the game can be quite difficult. And best of all, it's a cooperative game, so if you want a game that everybody can play together and not against one another, this is a pretty good choice. And follow this link for a complete guide on how to play the game. And now moving on to our final game for big gatherings. Well, this is also a cooperative game, and it's probably the best cooperative game ever invented. I did mention it as a bonus last year in my video about best games for the holidays, and I'm going to mention it again. It is a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, you might say that's not a game, but I think it's a game. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and there's a very specific goal. The goal is to fit all the pieces together and make a puzzle. I think it's a great cooperative game, and as I've coined it, it is a game buffet. You can come in, take a few pieces, put them together, and walk away. As with most buffets, somebody's going to gorge and try to get their money's worth and sit there for the whole thing, and others are going to come and go and help when they can and leave when they're ready to go. My recommendation is get at least a 1,000-piece puzzle. Anything less than that will be too quick. You're gonna want something that's gonna last a few days if you have a family gathering, not something that's gonna be over in a few hours. Even though other things will be happening, movies, video games, board games, most people will stop by the puzzle and try to fit a few pieces and check in on the progress of the others working on the puzzle. And it's a great activity for all age groups, from the littlest to the oldest. You usually get everybody participating. And if you don't know how to do a jigsaw puzzle, click on this link. I dare you. And so those are my top 10 games for big gatherings. I'm sure you have your own, so drop those in the comments and let us know what you think. Thanks again for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe to help this channel grow. You are great. See you next time on Playing Games. You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go play some games.